just giving you a little bit of warning ahead of time. So welcome to our webinar on social emotional learning and its importance and impact through self-awareness. I'd like to introduce to you, and by the way, my name is Dov Shapiro. I'm the CEO and founder of Connective Program. Joining me today is Carl Mercuri, an educator and social emotional learning coordinator at the Priory School in Montreal, Quebec, in Canada, where we are right now. In fact, Carl is actually from Australia. Carl, I'd like to welcome you, and please go ahead, take it away, my friend.
Thank you. Thanks, Dov. Dov, did we get that link in the chat for everyone? So guys, Dov, firstly, thanks everyone for joining us today, and in particular taking the time to really listen and go through a little bit of SEL and in particular self-awareness and the connection between self-awareness and SMART goals. You're going to get a link in the chat box in a second. When you get that link, it's actually the mood meter that we'll be using today, the vocabulary from it. If you can do me a favor and click on the link while I'm doing the introduction and just open it in a new tab and leave it open for later on. Don't check it out now because I don't want you to explore it right now. I'd rather you listen in to me. But when you get a chance, just open that link, open it in a new tab and get it ready for later on. So a little bit about me, guys. I've been an educator for nearly over 2 decades right now. My passion for well-being and social emotional learning pretty much started about 10 years ago. I was very lucky to be involved in a mental health and well-being framework across Australia and be trained in it. And since then, I've been doing a lot of training and studies in SEL, positive psychology, emotional intelligence, and positive behavior intervention strategies. But for today, what we are going to cover, this is broken up into about 3 sections. The first part is we're going to really explore social emotional learning, and in particular, the foundational competency of self-awareness. Then we're going to move over and I'm going to introduce you to the ruler approach, which is an evidence-based approach. And in particular, a tool called the mood meter, which is a fantastic tool for our teens and middle schoolers and even elementary students. But in particular today, I think we're focusing on middle schoolers and teens. And so I'll introduce you to the mood meter as a tool to use to build self-awareness. And then later on, Dov's going to take over and introduce you to SMART goals and make the connection to self-awareness and SMART goals. And here we'll also show you a little bit about the Connect You SMART Goal program. Now, for those who have just arrived and for those who have been with us since the beginning of this webinar, if you can do me a really quick favor and right now find the emotive word and think of how you're feeling. And for those who it's at the end of the day, it'll be different to us who it's early morning here, but think of one emotive word of how you're feeling. And can you please type it in the chat and don't use the mood meter, just whatever word comes up in your mind right now, get in tune with your body and write it in the chat. So I'll give everyone an opportunity to write that one emotive word and off you go, writing them in the chat. Wow, we've got a great deal of, this is a great array of emotive words. There's a lot of tiredness. I'm assuming there's either those who have just woken up or those who have just finished a full day's work, exhausted, worried. That's awesome. All right. Thanks for for this webinar to really be successful. It's really important that we all join in on the collaborative little activities that we have planned. So for those who have just joined, because I can see there's a lot of other people that have just joined, there is a link, please. And I'm sure Dove will add the link again. There's a link that we would like you to open the mood meter up and keep it open in a different tab just for today's activity. I'm going to keep on going from here. So just to set the tone for today's session, I've got this quote and I'd like everyone to really just have a read of the quote. And while you're reading it, the key message to today is that social emotional learning is not a learning fad. It's not something that is going to go away. Okay. It is so important right now that we have an epidemic that we're going through, but also with all the mental illness problems that we're having and social problems that are occurring around the world, that we need social emotional learning. And actually, science tells us that with social emotional learning, it is at the forefront of the ability for our children to actually learn. So without social emotional learning, it's what makes learning possible. So those who are new to social emotional learning, this is the definition of SEL, and in particular definition provided by CASEL. And CASEL is an organization which has been around for 25 plus years now, and they're at the forefront of research, analysis, implementation. And this is their evolving, because it changes all the time, but this is their evolving definition. And have a look at the definition, it's quite detailed. But what I want to highlight is in the first paragraph of this definition, that SEL is all about knowledge building. It's all about skill development. It's all about attitude shifting. It's all about life skills to help us have a positive impact on the world. In the second paragraph that you can see, SEL, we're really highlighting that there's an element of educational equity that needs to occur. There needs to be partnerships between schools, families, and community. We need to empower our youth to thrive in schools and contribute to safe, healthy, and just communities. So let's move on and really unpack SEL, and in particular, let's unpack self-awareness. I want to just highlight before I go into self-awareness, these are our 5 social emotional learning competencies. We have self-awareness and self-management, and these are the intrapersonal competencies. They're the ones about oneself. Okay. Then we have the social awareness and the relationship skills. So they're the interpersonal competencies, and they're about others. And then we have the responsible decision-making, which is the cognitive type competency. And for social emotional learning to be extremely impactful in schools and across society, we need to start with instruction in the classroom through implicit and explicit practices. We need to then move and make sure it's school-wide through policies and practices. Then we need to actually transfer that information to our families and caregivers through authentic partnerships. And then later on, we actually need to share that information and make I guess, connections to the local community and align these learning opportunities. But today in particular, we're here to talk about self-awareness. And self-awareness is the foundational competency. It's the one that is needed for all the other competencies to be successful. The World Health Organization recognizes that self-awareness is one of those 10 life skills that promote well-being across all cultures. And so if we look at the definition of self-awareness, and I'll go through it with you, it's the ability to understand one's own emotions, thoughts, and values, and how they influence behavior across contexts. This includes the capacities to recognize one's strengths and limitations with a well-grounded sense of confidence and purpose. And what I really wanted to highlight to you is that These are the components of self-awareness, and this is what we're trying to achieve. And if you see some of the common vocabulary, you're going to see a lot of integrating involved. You're going to see a lot of identity building, which is extremely important. You're going to see a lot of emotional recognition and understanding and feelings and values. But ultimately, we're trying to cultivate self-efficacy in self-awareness. You know, this is the belief in your own ability to achieve your goals. So today we are unpacking self-awareness, but in particular, we're going to go down the emotional self-awareness, I guess, path today. We're going to really understand emotions and feelings, and let's actually differentiate them. So what is the actual difference between an emotion and a feeling? So let's start with emotions. Emotions are those physical states that arise as a response to an external stimulus. You know, emotions occur because our senses have been stimulated to either a cognitive type stimulation, a social type stimulation, a pro-social type stimulation, a biological type trigger or stimulation. And due to that, we get this physical arousal that occurs in your body. Okay, emotions are the physical states, and they can actually be observed, whereas feelings are the mental association and reactions to emotions. Okay, feelings is the narrative that we're creating due to that physical state in our body. Feelings are caused by emotions, and they can be hidden. What we need to really do is we need to kind of reframe and teach our teens and our middle schoolers and high schoolers that emotions are best recognized as data or feedback mechanisms. We want to see them as not emotions as being dangerous experiences that need to be avoided, but view them as feedback of our mind and body telling us something, you know, giving them, we want to create this stance amongst our students of acceptance towards emotions and feelings, and in particular, like a working relationship. Emotions are subjective. Right now, you're listening to me, and some people are having a pleasant experience. Some people might be having an unpleasant experience. So they're subjective. And then lastly, emotions can impact the following. Emotions can impact our attention, learning, and memory. You know, remember our teens actually, they best learn when they have some form of emotional connection to content. Emotions can impact decision-making. As for decision-making, we need to have our teens be regulated to be in a part of the brain where they can make these mindful and beneficial decisions. It can impact relationships. Pleasant emotions or pleasant emotional experiences release the bonding chemical of oxytocin, that attachment chemical, which enhances relationships. Then we have physical and mental health, and even creativity. Pleasant emotions actually broaden and build our view. And due to that awareness, it promotes creativity. And it also, emotions can impact the way in which we perform and its effectiveness. So I want to welcome you all to the Ruler approach. Ruler is a model which was developed by the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence and has been backed by a lot of science and research. And basically, Ruler is a fantastic acronym that we should be using and can use in schools. And so I'm going to go through the acronym here with you. So the first R in Ruler means recognize. And it means recognizing emotions in oneself and in others through facial expressions, body language, tone of voice, words, and actions. But because today we're focusing on self-awareness, it's more about recognizing emotions in oneself. Then we go to the understanding. So what we're doing here is we're understanding the causes and the consequences of those emotions that we're just recognizing. Okay. Then we go to labeling. labeling the emotions. We want to get accurate. We want to get nuanced. We want to be able to differentiate. We want to expand our students' emotional vocabulary. Unfortunately, with limited emotional vocabulary, it restricts us. You know, when you ask a student nowadays how you're feeling, you get the happy, mad, or sad. And that's not really, we can't really, as educators, we can't really do too much with that. Then we go to expressing emotions. How do we express our emotions depending on the context, the situation, and our culture? And then lastly is regulating. How do we regulate our emotions in effective ways to really achieve our goals? So ruler, recognize, understand, label, express, regulate. So today, here's our mood meter. And this is a multifunctional tool. This is your mood meter here. So if you were to have this in your classroom, you would have the mood meter, and then you would have the vocabulary beside it. That's the setup that you want. And basically, the mood meter is a multifunctional tool. It's a tool that builds self-awareness, self-management, and social awareness. But today, we're looking at it from the self-awareness lens. Let me explain the parts of the mood meter to you. So the mood meter has an x-axis, which is pleasantness. This is your subjective, private mental experience. So the x-axis goes from -5, which is the most unpleasant you've ever felt, to neutral, to +5, which is the most pleasant you've felt. Then we have the y-axis, and this is all about energy. Okay, this is the amount of physical energy that's running through your body. So we have -5, which is when we have extremely low energy. Some of you guys were saying you're really tired at the moment, so you're in the negative part of the mood meter. So we have -5, which is extremely low energy, lethargic, nearly asleep. Then we go to neutral. And then we go to +5, the most energy you've ever felt. You're about to explode. So what they do, what Ruler has what they did with the mood meter is they've moved the line of pleasantness to the middle and the energy to the middle to create 4 quadrants: our red, our blue, our green, and our yellow. So let me explain each quadrant to you. So the red quadrant is unpleasant, high energy. So this is when I'm running late. For example, when I'm running late, this makes me anxious, and sometimes, you know, there's obstacles or people in my way, and it makes me furious. Okay, and so we'll find feelings like nervousness, rage, frustration, anger, and fear in the red quadrant. Then we have the blue quadrant, which is unpleasant but low energy. So when I spend you know, like extra time with a student preparing for an exam that he or she, you know, has been struggling with, and I can't seem to help them enough, I feel a little saddened and disappointed. And so here in this quadrant, you're going to have feelings like sadness, discouragement, devastation, loneliness, all found in the blue quadrant. And then we have the green quadrant. And so this is low energy, but high pleasantness. So last year when I returned back from a holiday, you know, I found some cards on my desk with thoughtful messages from my students. And when I read those cards, you know, I felt content and at ease. And so you're going to find feelings in the green quadrant that are calm, relaxation, serenity, gratification, and they're all found in the green quadrant. And then lastly, we have the yellow quadrant. And so the yellow quadrant is high energy and high pleasantness. And so I'm a huge Liverpool fan, soccer team. So when Liverpool won the Premier League a few years ago, you know, I felt elated, jumping up and down and cheering. So in the yellow quadrant, you're going to see and experience emotions and feelings such as joy and excitement, enthusiasm and empowerment, all in the yellow quadrants. So I hope everyone sort of got an idea of the mood meter. And now I'm going to show you, so we're going to move over to how to actually use it. So today, this is just a practical example of how to build self-awareness through using the mood meter as a check-in. Okay, and so I'm going to demonstrate using ruler and the mood meter to show you how to do this as a check-in. So a check-in, you could use it at the start of a lesson, at the end of a lesson, and it's really important for us to do this. So really quickly before I go through this, the first three questions here are our self-awareness questions. All right. The first three questions, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build the emotional vocabulary. You know, developing self-awareness, and in particular, emotional awareness, is all about developing emotional literacy. So if we can expand our students' emotional vocabulary, it will not only help them become in tune with their emotional experience, but it will also help them to communicate their feelings with specificity and intent. And that's really important. And this leads to a better support from us as teachers and educators, and it leads to better understanding and better relationships between the students and ourselves. So let me go through and show you how to use this. So R, where are you on the mood meter? So right now, where am I on the mood meter? For me to figure out what's that saying is, it's asking what color am I in the mood meter? I need to get in tune right now with the amount of energy that's running through my body. So I've got quite a lot of energy, and I've got to think of my mental state in terms of pleasantness. And I'm quite pleasantness. I'm presenting to you guys. So I find myself in the yellow. So I just did the R. Where am I on the mood meter? Is yellow. Understand. So this is making the connection to why I'm in the yellow. So understanding, why is that? I'm presenting to you guys. I'm sharing this information. I'm really enjoying it. Now, L is label. So what I need to do now is I need to find and get quite specific, and Mark Brackett at Ruler uses the word granular. Okay. And so what I need to do is find those coordinates. So right now, in terms of energy, I'm roughly about a +3 in energy. And if I was to say pleasantness, I'm a +3 in pleasantness. So if I find the spot, this is my spot here. Now, for those who have the vocabulary mood meter, if you look at this spot, this word is enthusiastic. And that makes a lot of sense for me right now. I am enthusiastic. My body language is showing that. My tone of voice is showing that. I'm moving quite a lot. It's keeping me engaged. So I am enthusiastic, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Now, the last two strategies, these are not self-awareness strategies, but I just wanted to still show you how to use them. So these are more of your social awareness and regulating or self-management strategies. But if I was to go to E, express, how am I actually expressing these feelings? Am I comfortable? Well, yes, I am. I'm very comfortable. And lastly, R, for regulating. How do I want to feel? What strategies do I want to use? Do I want to keep this feeling right now? Do I want to shift the feeling? Do I want more of it? Do I want less of it? Well, I am actually quite happy. So for me, taking these deep breaths, explaining what's happening is working for me as a regulating strategy. So now this is your turn. I'm going to get everyone to use the mood meter on the screen. And hopefully all participants who have been paying attention to this also have the link to the vocabulary mood meter. Dove, if you can do me a favor for those new participants who have just arrived, if you can just put the link up again. And if you've got the link, just open the link to your vocabulary mood meter in a separate, I guess, tab for now, guys. I'll give you about a minute or two. And now we're going to go through the ruler steps. Give everyone an opportunity to open up your vocabulary mood meter. Okay, so I need everyone now on my screen. So making sure that you're looking at my mood meter right now. So let's take these steps together. So R, where are you on the mood meter right now, guys? What color are you in? Think of the energy that's running through your body. Think of the pleasantness. Are you high energy, low pleasantness? Are you in the red? Are you low energy, low pleasantness? Are you in the blue? Are you high energy, high pleasantness? Are you in the yellow? Are you low energy, but high pleasantness? Are you in the green? Now that you have your color, why are you feeling this way? What's happened prior to this webinar? What's happening right now? What's happening? What have you got planned after? Now let's do the L. Now actually find your numerical numbers. So for example, what are, in terms of energy, what's that number? In terms of pleasantness, what's that number? And find the actual spot in your zone or in your quadrant, your colored quadrant. Once you've done that, now I'm showing you here. If you don't have your mood meter open, you can sort of try and have a look at mine, but try and find that vocabulary word. Now, can I get everyone to do me a favor? Now that you've gone through the R, the U, and the L, can I get everyone now to write the emotive word that you found in the chat box? Can everyone put it in the chat box? Go. This is great, guys. Well, some of them are. That's awesome. Thanks for joining in. This is really great. So guys, you know, my question is, from the beginning when I asked you how you feel to now, does this make sense? Does the going through the ruler approach help you really inform and in tune yourself in terms of how self-aware you are and give you the right vocabulary? Does that make sense? And I would assume it does. Okay. Now, just for those who would like to complete the rest of the check-in, how are you expressing this feeling that you just wrote in the chat? Are you expressing it in a way that's making you comfortable or uncomfortable? And lastly, for regulate, how do you want to feel? Do you want more of this? Do you want less of this? Would you like to stay the way you're feeling or not? And this is where the students, we delve deep into regulating type strategies. So lastly, I wanted to give you an example of what a check-in might look like. This is an example of a check-in that you could use with your students, remembering that this is like an example of what we could do is we could put it in as a journal. So the students have their own type of journal. Remember, journaling and checking in together is really beneficial. It allows our students to really identify, clarify, accept their thoughts and their feelings. It helps students to discover that what they want, what they really value, what works for them. It also helps our students to find out what they actually don't want, you know, what's not important to them and what doesn't work for them. And so now I'm going to start to make a connection, and then we're going to go over to Dove in a second. But how does self-awareness impact goal achievement? Well, by being self-aware, we're aware of our strengths and our weaknesses. By being self-aware, we're aware of our dislikes and likes. By being self-aware, we're aware of our beliefs and values. And lastly, by being self-aware, we're aware of our emotions and in particular ways to regulate them. So Dove, so guys, the next step is Dove's going to take over and he's going to make the connection to SMART goals, and you're going to learn all about Connect You. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Carl. That was great. Every time we do this, I learn so much. Excuse me. And definitely see the value in doing this kind of exercise with students. We'll talk a little bit more about how to integrate this into class at the end of our webinar during the Q&A session. Right now, I'm going to change the view over, excuse me, and please let me know if you can see it says self-awareness is often the first step to setting goals at the top.
Yeah, we can see that, Dov.
Okay, thanks very much. So the connection between self-awareness and setting goals is that it can help you create achievable goals because you can consider your strengths, your weaknesses, what drives you. And so I think it's really important to understand that, self-awareness is one of those opportunities for students to engage in goal setting. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that looks and what that feels like in just a moment. I've been working with students for over 30 years as a former science teacher, experiential educator, and I've witnessed the decline of self-awareness skills and other life learning skills quite dramatically over the decades, and even more so since the pandemic, which has certainly exacerbated the mental health crisis and has increased the student anxiety levels to a very dangerous point. And so, when you look at the WHO, the World Health Organization, and the research that they do, it's incredible to understand just how impactful the mental health crisis is on our students. At this point in time, according to psychologist Peter Gray, children today are more depressed than they were during the Great Depression. And they're more anxious than they were during the height of the Cold War. And so we have to think about our students in this way, which is, in many cases, not all, they truly are struggling. And they are experiencing levels of stress that are impeding their opportunities and their possibilities and their education. According to the WHO and their researchers, stress blocks learning. And neuroscience research shows that stress can block chemical reactions in the brain that are necessary for learning and disrupt learning and memory development. So in our research, we asked educators what they need to support their students' mental health. And their response was often to provide evidence-based tools that allow our students to become more autonomous learners, learn to build self-awareness skills, and the key life learning skills that students and ourselves really need. So they also suggested that we want our students to adopt the growth mindset and become more resilient. So what we did is we started looking at our own research. And in our research, the studies show that students who create and achieve goals using the SMART method in particular gain confidence, reduce anxiety, build resilience, and even improve their well-being and their GPA. It even is shown to reduce bullying incidents. So raising self-awareness can impact your goals because you know what your natural talents are, and you can also know where your areas are for growth and actually monitor those very carefully. Also understanding what your values are in order to make really informed decisions and sharpen your intuition to make better decisions. And also because you know what you need to change. So SMART is an acronym, right? It's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely goals. And before we get into actually creating goals, what we've done in the Connective Program, we've designed a web app and curriculum using the SMART Gold method. And what we do is first an assessment on our students to understand where they are now. So we need to create a benchmark for future key performance indicators to see where there's growth. But really, we want to identify our students that are struggling. And that's one of the key facets to Connective Program. So I'm going to change the share and show you just a very brief intro or demo into what the Connective Program looks and feels like. So you can see here that students, after they take an assessment, they're measured on different constructs, which are on the top row. So There are 13 constructs measured which align with Castle's framework of social emotional learning. And if you look at, for example, confidence here on the left, this is indicating in green 30% of this grade 9 class. This is a demo class. They're not real names. 30% of this class score over 70 out of 100 in their assessment scores of confidence. In amber, you see 60% are scoring between 30 and 70 out of 100, and 10% are scoring under 30. So that's the quick way to view it. However, what's really interesting is when we look further down into the total results by tier. You can see there are some students here like this one who are scoring low in one of the constructs. And constructs are divided into categories: skills development, social consciousness, mental health, and social emotional learning. There's a lot of crossover between them. In fact, most of these constructs can actually be found within the category of social emotional learning. But these are divided into categories for the purpose of looking specifically right now at mental health. Although it's not a diagnostic tool, it's a developmental tool. It is a very accurate one, at least as accurate as the data going in. So as honest as students are to respond to the questions on the assessment. But if you can see here under confidence, it's in red. And then the next week, you'll be able to click on that number and see the questions and the responses to the specific questions for confidence construct. Any scores that are in the low range, right, under 30, in the mental health category are of concern, because a student may be susceptible to mental health challenges, anxiety, depression, even suicidal ideation. So we want to understand our student, understand them at a deeper level. If you hear the dog barking in the background, I apologize. I can't do anything about that. So here you can see clearly this student with 33 in resilience, 29 in confidence, and 30 in self-compassion. We'll probably want to have our guidance counselor understand what Isabel is doing, how she's feeling, and the intervention is teaching students how to create and achieve their goals. Again, going back to the research, it shows students are building confidence as they go through their goals and their action items. So we have a 6-week program, which is a blended learning solution, and each week is a 45-minute class. It takes about 15 minutes to read through an actual lesson plan. And once you've read through lesson number 1, it's just as easy to go to an instructional sequence and start teaching. And there are 2D animated videos associated with each lesson plan. Again, there are 6. 2D animated videos are very engaging. They are very age and developmentally appropriate. And they give the students a framework for what the SMART goal method is all about. It gives them ideas on how to create goals. It gives them opportunities to then create those goals into the framework of the web app itself. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. SMART is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely goals. So we want to teach our students each letter of the acronym so that they can start creating those goals. So once students have gone through lesson number 1, they can actually create a goal. What they see is this view: 7 categories of goals. Community, which is a very important one for many schools for their community service hours, for students making money, social life, their health and behavior and family, all extremely important. Every student is required to create at least 1 academic goal and then choose from the other categories. When I create a goal for the first time, I'm reminded of what I should be typing in to each of the boxes in case I forgot. But after the very first lesson, it's very easy to do what I'm about to do. So for me, learning my bio terms was one of my goals. It's just the name of the goal, not the actual goal written out. It's just the name. How is it relevant? For me, it prepares me for my final exam. And then how challenging is my goal? For me personally, even though I was a science teacher, learning my bioterms was hard. What actions will I take? I will study 3 times per week on Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 1 hour. And when is it due? Well, my exam is actually going to be on the 20th. So we got to be done by the 20th. I'll add a second action item, and then I'll need to add more if I feel that is required, but it's a minimum of 2. How are you going to measure it? Well, the outcome is I will know my bioterms by December 20, but how will I actually track the performance? So for me, I will calendar each study session and monitor. So now I'm going to create accountability for myself. Wonderful. When will I start? Well, I'm going to start this evening. So I'm going to put it in for December 7. And when will I complete it? The exam is on the 20th. The specific, which I'm not going to write out, but uses the 5 W's. And those are who, what, where, when, and why. And we write 1 to 3 sentences, to create this goal. So an example of a very specific goal in this case would be, I will study 3 times per week for 1 hour at home, so I know all of my bioterms for my final exam on December 20th. That is using the 5 W's, and it's very specific. Is it ethical? I indicate so by the check marks, and then I click on the little green check mark, and that goes into the system. So now, as a teacher, I can quickly monitor my students. I can see how many are creating those goals, or I can also identify those who are struggling. So here I have the classroom's goals for my grade 9 students, how many have been created. I can change how I want to view that. And I can see here, one student, as you can see right here, has not completed the 2 goals that he created, Lonnie Halleck. So if I look over, I can see that they're still active. 5 action items are created. Only 2 are completed. 3 are still active, meaning that he's still working on it, but they're late. So I can very quickly go and I can see what Lonnie's active goal is. And these are the action items associated with the goal. I can even see how the SMART goal was created. And very, very easily, once I've gone through this a couple of times, I know instinctively that's not a specific goal. That doesn't use the 5 W's. And I can understand that even though he set out to study 2 hours a day, 6 days a week for the next month, then perhaps his time management skills is not exactly as it should be. I can offer suggestions. I can offer ideas for Lonnie to change how he's studying for a particular exam. I can offer sample quizzes or flashcards, nowadays electronic flashcards. I can sit with him for a moment and just give some suggestions. I can give feedback so that Lonnie has some new ideas of how he can achieve those goals. And I want to celebrate, of course, with him every single time any action items or any of those goals are achieved. I'm going to go back to the presentation here in just a second. So we designed the app using the SMART Goals program with 2D animated videos that are very engaging. It makes it very interesting for our students to learn how to create and achieve goals. It creates accountability so that the students are accountable for those academic goals, which is really important. And through that experience, we know that accountability helps to make that impact. Why is accountability so important? Well, it increases our ability to achieve goals and build the grit and resilience to deal with the tough situations and develop self-efficacy. And these are all tremendous, aspects to education and to SEL, especially now. So we actually have another role for accountability. We call it a goal buddy. A goal buddy is chosen by the parent and the student, approved by the parent. They're 21 or older, could be a family, could be a parent or a mentor or a coach, usually not the teacher. I wouldn't want to burden the teachers any more than they already have on their plate. And so the role of this goal buddy is to first look out for the notifications on the cell phone or in their email, review the weekly report that they get so they understand the progress, and address the action items or goals that aren't working or aren't being achieved in a timely manner, and to celebrate every single time those action items and those goals are achieved. And it's through that experience that the students start to develop confidence. That's what the research shows. And according to goal theory and the educational psychologists that have helped to develop this program, we know that students over time, because they begin to develop confidence, their resilience increases. And there is where the student well-being begins to improve. And so after a 6-week program, students are still doing self-reflections with their teachers once a week. It's for 10 minutes. They continue monitoring with their goal buddies, their weekly goals and action items as well. So 2 different types of self-reflections each week, very important. In addition to that, the Connective program is really emphasizing the importance of community. Above and beyond what we do, our belief is that impacting community, and specifically by using the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals, we can make a difference and we can impact the well-being of our students. So there's a collaborative goals program where students create goals with their teachers, which are aligned specifically with the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. This aligns very nicely with the IB curriculum and their CAS program, and wherever you're teaching goal setting for that matter. The other part of our program is called a leadership initiative. Really interesting is that an individual student can earn an opportunity to attend a community service trip somewhere around the globe that we pay for. The student has to be 15 or older and follow different guidelines. There's an essay writing component, and our board of directors votes on which student they feel has earned the right to go on this program. So results for schools and students, what are they? Actionable data. We understand where our students are now, and that's really important. It's really hard, especially in a hybrid environment or a remote learning environment, and especially now, how our students are really feeling. What are they going through? Where are those students that really can benefit from more intentional learning supports? And so having that kind of actionable data is substantial. And then a better way to create goals and create accountability for those goals is also what the Connective program does. And then, of course, having that accountability consistently over time is where the levels of confidence and resilience come in as students are creating more goals and achieving more goals. We're going to put up some of the references regarding the content that was delivered today. I want to open up the Q&A. We do have some questions. The first question, however, that came up earlier in the chat, I want to address right away. For Carl, one of the questions was, what's another way to integrate the mood meter across different grade levels? And I thought that's a great question to start off with.
Across grade levels. Was it more of a high school type? Is it a high school type question, Dove, from someone?
I think it's fair to say that if we can explain how the mood meter can be used, yes, definitely in the secondary grades. I think it's fair. I think that would probably be a little bit more challenging as a former science teacher in secondary.
Look, I've got some examples. So the mood meter can be integrated into not only as a check-in, but it can be integrated into your classes. So for example, if you're a history teacher, you could use it to analyze kind of historical events and how they have emotional impact, how they've had an emotional impact on society. You could use for English or any form of language really, but in particular English, You could use the mood meter for poetry writing. So if you wanted to really personify an emotion and bring it to life, we could use it also for character analysis in texts or in books, trying to really pull apart, using the mood meter, pull apart the emotional reactions to a character in a text, and finding the vocabulary and the reasons why the character behaved and reacted in a specific way. Biology and sciences, using the mood meter to really pull apart, and health classes, really defining what the emotions actually mean. But also, why not only am I defining them, but how about we research, like, what is stress management? What does stress do to the brain, to the body? And then from that, come up with your regulating strategies. So they're just some really, I guess, concrete ideas as to what you could do in the class or across different curriculum areas.
Thank you for that, Carl. I think that's really helpful. And in addition to that, there's another question. What age group is this truly designed for?
Yeah, the mood meter varies. So the one that I showed you guys, I just saw a message also in the chat, but I couldn't see it, but I'm not sure who wrote it, but Dove, just have a look. But the message has come up, and it said that there is the free mood meter app. So great suggestion, guys. So whoever, I've got to go back, I can't see everything, but whoever mentioned that's a huge suggestion, in particular for our high school students who want to track their own, I guess, emotional experiences, and just keep accountable themselves for what's happening. So I'm a really big fan, and Rulers actually created that. So I would highly recommend to check out the app, especially for the older ones. The actual mood meter that we use today with the graph is for, if I'm not wrong, off the top of my head, for 11-year-olds to adults. So we've got it basically, from middle school to how old as old as you want to be, but right. and there's also a differentiated one. So there's one for kindergarten students to grade 2, and that one there doesn't actually have the graphs on it. So it's just got the quadrants. You still got pleasantness and energy, but teaching them, it's not about plotting with them. It's more about them getting to understand what energy, making the connection to energy and emotions and feelings, and also understanding what pleasantness means, because pleasantness is really tough for a 5-year-old to understand what pleasantness means. Right. So really differentiating that and starting to expand their emotional vocabulary, but more through connection to context. So storybooks and role playing and so on. So that's really the difference.
That's great advice. Yeah, that's great advice and suggestions. So I wonder, there was one other question. So Carl, integrating SEL has been a challenge for some of the teachers.
Sure.
And integrating SEL for the secondary grades in particular can be very challenging. Yeah. So if you want to integrate the mood meter and ruler concept into secondary grades, older students, is there a trick to being age and developmentally appropriate for that cohort?
Yeah, I would say that, look, for social emotional learning to really be impactful, especially at the high school setting, it needs to be integrated into the academic content. Right. So that's the first thing. So those examples that I gave you with the history and the poetry writing and so on. But secondly, we just got to take the time at the start of a lesson to check in. We just got to take the time to really listen to our students, because at the end of the day, they're not going to be able to learn if we're not in connection with them. And really, if we think as educators that we know what the students want, but actually we need to find out what they want. And that's the best way to go about it. And hence the reason why I guess we're here today also with the SMART goals, because, goals is a huge element in social emotional learning. In particular, goal achievement falls under the realm of self-management. How do I actually achieve my goal? What do I need to do from an executive functioning process to be able to get to the point of where I actually achieve my goal? And so why not integrate goal setting into your lessons? And it might just be something simple as a class goal at the start on the board using the SMART goal, and then getting the students to check in at the end. Did you achieve the class goal for today using the SMART goal method? And if not, what's the reason for it? And that's where you become that self-awareness, the connection. So yeah, basically.
Yeah, so that's great. That's actually really valuable feedback, Carl, that I think an educator can take away with and use without having to, get on board with any particular program. They can actually just use the method, the SMART method, put something up on a board, integrate the ruler approach to using the mood meter. And there you have a simple package for secondary, where it's sometimes challenging to get the buy-in and the engagement from the students. And so I think what we've done, and especially what you've offered here, is some insights as to how our teachers can integrate SEL in a very effective and a simple way. So I want to thank you for bringing this up and delivering it the way that you did. Thank you.
Yeah, I just really need to say that social emotional learning is really conducive to the elementary sector, but it's really difficult because of the academic constraints in the high school level. So we need to be creative, and we need to find a way to integrate. Integrate is my key word. It's all about integration. And for teachers, you don't want another extra, but it's not about the extra, it's about the integration to then make sure that we can actually meet the needs of our students.
Can we just touch on that for one quick second before we end? Because there was a comment made in the chat box from Michelle Riley. She likes the idea of using the SMART method in the secondary classroom. And excuse me, when you suggested the idea of creating a goal for the classroom, where my mind went was not only for the classroom, but for the community, which could be the grade level, or it could be the school, right? So, creating some kind of SMART goals that impact not just your class and your students, but how it can impact others in your school or in your community. And through that experience, have a direct impact on the well-being of your students through that experience of, supporting community. So that was one point that I thought was interesting. I wanted to bring up. And then there was one other that was made. Rightly said, Carl. Neha Talwar said, rightly said, Carl, we need to know what students need, not assume. So from your experience, how would you go about actually knowing that?
Yeah, that's like a huge question, because that's one that isn't it? It's the biggest difficulty, isn't it, in education, is really knowing deep down what do our students need, and we can do it in multiple different ways. We can do it through your surveying and your questioning, but the best way for me is the relationships that you create amongst your students. At the end of the day, as educators, and I know it's really difficult, but if we have that connection with our students, they will be comfortable enough to actually express what they need. And then by doing that, we can then meet their needs. So it comes down to the connection that an educator has with their students.
Carl, I thank you for sharing all of this with us today. And I want to thank all the attendees for being here. This is an incredible amount of content, some of which is very easy to integrate into the classroom. The takeaway for me is making connections with our students, learning about their needs, and supporting them in any way we can so that they can achieve whatever those goals might be for themselves. And that includes academic and personal goals. And if we can do that through community and in a community approach, wow, imagine the impact that we can make, not just on community, but then through that, experiential learning for our students, where we can, help them grow as individuals and help them build those life learning skills, self-awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making, self-awareness is a key role. So thanks so much for being with us, everybody, this morning. There were some great questions. Great to see that you were able to join. We had a very large participation. We will be sending out the link to the webinar for you in case you were unable to be a part of the entire experience, or if you wanted to share with anybody. Just as a note to you all, the Connective Program is available for a free pilot coming in the new year. If you'd like to learn more about what we're doing, we are available to chat with you. We'll send you a link to connect with us. Carl is also available to speak with if you have some questions on SEL. Our contact information will be shared with you. And I want to wish you all a wonderful day. Carl, thank you so much for being here with us. I hope you have an amazing day, my friend. And to all the attendees, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for your participation and for letting us know how tired you were and now how enthused you are. It's pretty neat to see the transformation from start to beginning. Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, everybody.
See you guys.
Bye.